take our breaths away with its glow.
Whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. I'm Maria Thompson Corley. If that quote from Philippians resonated with you, stay tuned. I'd love to introduce you to intriguing, creative people whose light is making our world a lovelier place. Welcome to Finding Beauty.
I call this one Poem for Anthony because we poets never or rarely forget. Hey Anthony, I want to turn you into a fire escape poem written some angry summer night when sleep won't come and the rage of red sirens bleed inside my eyes, throat, and eardrums. I want to fold this tangled up, jumbled up, fed up, fucked up frenzy I call a feeling into a poem or some such a semblance of wordplay, even if editors will refuse to pay and readers will never quite get it. When a late night drive-by shot another hole through Harlem's heart, where was I when the drama came and every dream's light went dark and CNN copped the station break? Sometimes my mind gets lost inside the static ache, but just so you know, upon that shattering news, this whole world moved to a different beat. Some slow motion spectator claimed my face, and I wondered why I could not breathe, much less move from this place. I am in the center of your screen, Anthony. I am in the echo of the shotgun's blast. I am in the exploding sound that came afterward. I am the shine of fearful eyes within that tragic front line. I am lost inside that night's melee. I am that stun of surprise. I am that ache inside your mother's chest. I am that flickering heat. I am at the apex of that speeding fireball of pain. Yes, I am within that laser-like pain. I am caught between that cold blank stare of impending death. No need to wonder where I was, Annie. What matters now is where I am. I am diving inside your body where all your pain is manufactured. I am a lone swimmer inside your thick river of bile. I am that gagging gurgle of blood you are choking upon. I am not a graceful swimmer, but I am doing backstrokes inside this gray ooze of murdered memory. I am drowning inside your splattered brain parts. I am floating within the pinkish chunks of your sensitivity. I am wading through the bullshit. Oh, so much bullshit. I am vibrating within the viscera displayed inside the center of your screen. Anthony, I am in that rigid vogue of your dead limbs. I am caught and pinned against the stiffening joints of your crumpled body. I am that cold slab of uncomfortable concrete. I am in the rising of petrified air. I am in the stink of your Air Jordan feet. I am that deep hole ripped inside your trifling heart. I am that cool white sheet, white breeze, white light of an angel's wings. But mostly I have died a little death, and the echo to what's left of me resides inside the center of your screen.
Wow. So I'm very grateful today to be talking to Lin Ross, and I'm really grateful to be reading this bio because it's such an interesting one. So, Lin Ross, New Yorker, oft-published poet, wordsmith, editor, lyricist, reviewer, four-time novelist. As way of a description, he writes, "First, I am an artist who strives and fights to conceive and give birth to truth, to light, to dreams, to life that leaps and breathes, pounds and pings, spritzes, freaks, fidgets, fumbles, sighs, and screams. Shout out to all who've inspired me, whether struggling in obscurity or dancing in the golden light of acclaim. For without the shimmering of reflective souls, this world would be so much dimmer, sadder, less informed, and a far less beautiful place. His poetry, prose, short stories, and articles have appeared in numerous, to date well over 300, publications, magazines, journals, anthologies, including African American Review, AIM, Black Writer Magazine, Catalyst, Danger, Essence, Free Lunch, Gypsy, Height, Ashbury Literary Journal, Impetus, Longshot, The Moment, Obsidian, Plastic Tower, Radio Void, Struggle, Tangents, TV Guide, Verve, and many others, or Verve, sorry. He has published a total of 4 well-received novels and is currently working on releasing his first book of poetry. Now, I'll say that the intro mentions thinking on things that are lovely. That was a lovely thing to think about. But I believe that part of the role of art, whether it's painting or music or whatever it is taking things that we experience and translating them into something that communicates to other people. And it's that sharing that I think can bind us together, even if the experience that's being shared or the image that's being shown is maybe not on the surface something that people would seek out to see. Does that make any sense?
Sure it does. I think that art itself is versatile and it means different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have a definition for it. So I think anyone's definition of what art is means what art is to them. So it's
right.
all valid.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so when did you know that you wanted to be a writer?
I don't think that I had to make the decision. I think those decisions are made for us in utero probably. I do recall my earliest experience when I didn't know it was called writing was as a small child, about 7 or 8, listening to the radio to songs that I've heard constantly that were on the top 10 or whatever, and making up different words for them. Like, inventing new lyrics and singing that song in my head and singing that song around people. And they were looking at me like, why are you singing those words when those are not the words? I didn't realize at the time that was writing, I was rewriting, but that was natural for me. So I guess at a very early age, a teacher discovered that I had a talent for communication in high school. And that was the first year I was published. I think I might have been a junior in high school.
Oh, where were you published?
An anthology called Young America Sings. She did it in a very slick and probably the best way possible, in that I did not know she was submitting my poetry at all. So in case it wasn't accepted, I wouldn't be disappointed. And she did this without me knowing, and when the published poem was out, she decided to share with me in the class. So it was a big surprise.
So was that the only thing that you ever thought of doing, or did you ever consider doing anything else?
Well, you know how when you're a young man, you have these different visions of what you want to do or how you see yourself living. I thought I wanted to be a teacher for the longest. And in some ways I have been. I just haven't been a paid professional teacher, but I've been instructing people for the longest. I also wanted to work with the homeless, so social work was something that was interesting to me at one time. But I always come back to writing, always. Sort of thing I fall back on. It's sort of, because it's natural, it feels like a good fit. It feels like something I should be doing. And I'm always touched when people say that they feel some kind of way from reading my work, that it either relieves them or takes away something that was bothering them. Or it's sort of like a ministry in a way. And I feel good about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of what I was trying to express in a way, although I didn't mention anything about ministry, but I think things can become really a calling, in a sense, when they communicate that way to people. So can you tell us a little bit about your formative years? Were everybody in your family writers? Were you the only one? Can you tell me just things, memories, or things that you feel kind of helped to shape you as a writer and as a person?
Well, I think a lot of artists would probably say that they were strange children, and I definitely could make that claim for myself. I like to be around adults. The older, the better. I don't mean like my parents. I mean like grandparents and people who were elderly. I like listening to their stories. I thought they were more interesting than people my age. And that's probably still the case. No, my parents were not artists, were not writers or anything. My mother used to paint, and I think that was her one artistic gift that she passed on to me, because initially I started out in art as far as fine art, but writing sort of claimed me. I wish I would have had more a supportive sort of foundation in that. People thought that, writing and being artistic was something you did as a hobby, not something you did to make money, or something you did because that's what your soul moved you to do. And they had that kind of support growing up, but it was something that always sustained me. And I think God gives us all gifts, and what we do with those gifts can make a big difference in our own lives and the lives of others, and that we can sometimes be moved to do something else because it's more practical, but we will always come back to that gift. And that's what I've done.
Or if you don't come back to the gift, you end up just feeling slightly frustrated all your life if you don't find a way to incorporate that.
Very true.
Yeah. So you lived your whole life pretty much in New York City, is that correct, or am I wrong?
Well, I was born in Virginia, which is where I'm currently at. I'm living here currently while I finish up a book. But we came to New York when I was a little older than an infant, I think about 4 or 5 years old. So most of my life has been spent in New York.
Okay. And what part just curious, I mean, I lived in New York for only 6 years, but what part of New York were you in?
Well, I've been all around. I think I spent the most time in Westchester County. But I've lived in Harlem. I've lived in Manhattan, Upper Manhattan, and Lower. I lived in a place called Portchester, New York, which is in Westchester County. But, New York is a good fit for me because although Westchester is sort of suburban and you can see grass and trees, it doesn't take anything but a train ride a half an hour away to be a part of the urban life. So that was a good fit.
Okay.
They got both worlds.
You like the city, the energy of the city itself.
Okay. I think it inspires people to create, I think. That energy is sort of like a smack in the face, and you hear all kind of languages, and if you like to walk, like I like to walk, different neighborhoods will give you a different type of flavor and rhythm to your work. It's almost osmosis. Just walking through a neighborhood, you hear different languages, and you see different types of people, and it sort of informs what you do and how you create.
Well, I could see, especially, when you write novels, for the characters to seem real, you have to obviously observe people. And if you're not going to keep writing the same characters over and over again, that being open to who's around you and what they're doing and just kind of absorbing it by osmosis, I can see why that's important.
It's very important.
Yeah. So you're very conscious of the importance of expressing your ethnicity in your writing. And was that something that you always consciously tried to do, or it just happened?
I think that it's very difficult not to in some way, shape, or form, unless you're trying to write yourself out of it. Unless you're trying not to, you want to disappear into the words and the characters to the point where it's you no longer have a past or a life within the work itself. I think our experiences inform our work, no matter how that comes out. So I don't think that I necessarily write black poems or poems for black males. That would be kind of limiting. But I do think my background informs my work, and I do think my influences will definitely color and pepper throughout the work.
Oh, that makes sense to me, too. Okay, so talking about music, because I almost always end up talking about music, being a musician, is it fair to say that jazz is one of your passions? Even you don't. Are you a musician of any kind, or just a music lover?
I like to think poets are probably chanters of some kind. There's a reason why a lot of poets tend to recite their work over music. But no, I don't play an instrument. I mess around on keyboards, but you're an actual musician, so I would not put myself in that category.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't think you have to be a professional to say that, if you can play an instrument to some extent. I mean, some people don't know where middle C is or whatever, they have no idea. So you have, some connection as well. 'Cause, I mean, I know that you seem, anyway, to have a real knowledge of jazz. are you someone who listens to music to help you get into the mood to create? I mean, you mentioned reciting over music, but are you able to do that?
I've done both, and it depends on the type of work that I'm trying to manifest. I will sometimes listen to people like Miles Davis or John Coltrane, and they will put you in a sort of mood that is conducive to writing a certain type of prose. Whereas Langston Hughes was considered by many a jazz and blues poet, I don't see him that way. But people have often spoke about rhythms as far as his work, and even mine to a certain extent. And I think some of that comes through having music in our life, not necessarily in the room while we're creating, but music around us.
Because, I mean, I know I get distracted. Like, I could never write and listen to music at the same time because I just listen too much to the music and I can't concentrate. But I know a lot of people that sets the mood, you know, gets them inspired.
Well, it cannot be the thing that's overpowering in the room. It has to be something, you know, like I said, I've done both, but it has to be something that's sort of like in the background, literally in the background, where you can just close your eyes and sink into it. And you don't necessarily write until you feel the urge to write. Sometimes the music can inspire you to, like, you know, on a subject matter, or just hearing a word or feeling a color within the music itself can put you onto a totally different tangent than you might have started out having, you know?
I mean, I understand why that should happen with people. Even if it's quiet, I find myself just really listening. But I wish that were the case, because I think that, you know, that sounds like a wonderful way of just flowing from this external thing, you know, or it comes through you, and then out of that you get inspired to write in a particular way. But do you have favorite pieces of music or artists?
There are some things that are essential as far as if you consider yourself a jazz head, which I'm not sure if I would define myself that way, but I do appreciate that. There's certain things you just gotta have in your life, you know?
Yeah.
Like Miles Davis's Kind of Blue, one of his first albums, is essential. It was very ahead of its time. It's considered cool jazz, and that it incorporated a certain amount of intelligence, a certain amount of musicianship to even, like, some people seem to think that jazz is sort of very improvised, and this was very much a mood shifter and a seismic recording, in that it showed you that jazz musicians were real musicians who really devoted themselves to the art, and you hear it in the music. So I also like John Coltrane for the same reason. You can almost feel his intelligence when he plays the horn. You don't sense that this is somebody who picked up a horn and just learned how to play, or played by ear. It's someone who's really schooled himself on life, and it comes through that horn. There are people like that I seem to dig from way back. I like a lot of the classics. I like Nina Simone. I like Duke Ellington. The Newport was recorded in the late 1950s, I believe. But it's one of the essential jazz albums also. If you listen to stuff like that, you could not go wrong. Also, Cannonball Adderley, Sarah Vaughan, people like that. But I'm not completely an old school head. I like when they decided to put music into a different sort of headset, and became more of a fusion between rock and jazz and R&B and soul and all of that. Then you had people like Herbie Hancock emerging on his own, because he used to play with Miles back in the day. But Herbie Hancock, his more seismic effect on the music world came from an album called Headhunters, which was done in the early 70s. He also kind of shaped the direction with jazz.
So you're like the people who are innovators, who shake things up and not, for example, the ones who, like, there's a particular style and somebody excels in that particular style, but you're more drawn to the people who take it to the next level and shape.
I like people who experiment, who make me think outside of the box. As far as a writer, I also like people who challenge me. Like Toni Morrison, her books, when I started reading her stuff, it really confused me, almost to the point of boring me, because I didn't understand. But it takes you, like, to step outside of what you know, worlds that you know, to really get into her characters and get into her style of writing. And then it takes you on a journey. It's really very, very deep.
You know what? I mean, I always found, and I didn't find that with Paradise and going forward, but I found that the beginnings of her books would sometimes strike me as extremely slow. For example, Tar Baby, I think, was the first one I read. And I found the first 50 pages, and maybe it was very descriptive and stuff like that, but I just found it really slow. And then once I got past that, then, I was just completely hooked. And I don't remember feeling that way about Beloved, honestly. But, yeah, it's interesting that you would say boring in the same sentence as Toni Morrison, because honestly, I have felt that way about the openings of her books while acknowledging the great genius that she possesses with words and just not even pretending that I could,
And no musician wants to be boring. That's like, the kiss of death, to be that.
Yeah.
And I think I have been accused of that also in my work, in that it starts out slow, and there's a reason for it. It's not about, trying to make anyone go to sleep. It's about painting a picture, and it's about putting you in a scene and putting you in a place and making sure you understand the smells of that place, not just the visual, but the smell of it, the feel of it. And once she does that, then she takes you on a journey.
Absolutely. But, there's such a pressure with this whole thing about, how to write the first page, because the agent, if you're trying to submit to agents or wherever, if you're not self-publishing, then there's this whole thing of like, they're not going to read more than a paragraph if you don't grab them. And, people try to explain the best way to do that. And it becomes, to me, more about finding the right gimmick as opposed to really, I don't know. I mean, obviously, if people aren't drawn in, then they're not going to keep reading. I understand that, but... You're
absolutely right. And the thing that bothers me is that I have in the past allowed myself to think that way and had such a hard time struggling with, well, what should I put first? Not that I was trying to make the perfect sentence, although that itself is an impossibility. You just have to make something compelling to you. You have to write the kind of things you want to read. You can't second guess anyone else's, psychology, or how they grew up, or what they feel, or what pleases them, or what, they're in the mood to hear or listen to. No, it has to come from you. It has to be more organic than that. And that's the one thing you learn, from application, from doing it over and over again, that I have been guilty of second guessing myself and trying to make other people happy. Not a good thing to do.
Yeah. So I hate to skip my Prince question, which doesn't seem like a logical segue. Although when you were talking about people who went outside the box, he was certainly one of them. But I said, oh, well, he must be a cool person because I see he's a big Prince fan, because he was sort of my first rock star obsession. So I assume that's kind of what drew you to Prince as well, this idea of someone who took things and just kind of made you think and went outside the box.
Yeah, but you know what? Before Prince, I had to give mad props to Stevie Wonder, because Stevie Wonder did that before Prince even. I think maybe it might be an age thing. I'm old school enough to remember Stevie. And what I dug about him was his way of telling stories through his music, lyrically, and how he would put things it would seem grammatically incorrect, but yet at the same time, it makes so much sense to a listener. And then took it to a place that went beyond blackness, beyond urban, beyond culture, and to some place that was so human. The songs that I like mostly are the songs that weren't as popular, that were just out of albums, because he spoke about things that were very, very insular.
Like which? Can you give an example?
For instance, there's a song on his Love Sexy album. Love Sexy was his least popular album as far as sales. There's a song called Anastasia. Yeah. Right? In it, he asked the question, have you ever heard so much you take anyone, boy or girl? And I thought that's a very interesting take on an emotion thing. Being so lonely that you would just... didn't matter who you were with. You just had to have someone break that spell of loneliness. And I thought that's a very honest and deep thing to go into musically. And the music itself was very haunting. Some of Prince's best compositions were things that weren't super popular, and I don't know who was making the decisions on what was going to become a single or whatever, but I think sometimes they missed the mark.
Well, I think in his case, he always had that thing of fighting for control with his label. But I think part of the problem with Love Sexy was that picture on the cover. I think people were just sort of turned off by that.
He looked almost like a transvestite in that one. He was a little too pretty.
Well, it was just a bit much, just the whole naked flowery guy thing. And to be a transvestite or trans anything these days is just whatever. He was always androgynous and always the heels, that whole thing was always androgynous. It was just
when he started making music, he must have made that decision, because have you seen any early pictures of Prince when he had an afro? He was really hardcore, trying to be a black boy, play basketball.
Yeah, when he was a baller. But you know what? I mean, he still, to me, as a woman, projected something masculine and sexy, even though, like, most men, if I were to meet them somewhere and, you know, they were dressed like him and, you know, like in heels and stuff like that, I would not necessarily find them the most attractive as a woman. But he had such an energy about him that was sensual or something, and part of it was, you know, he was telling you things about himself that, you know, maybe he could back up, maybe he couldn't, but, you know, so maybe that was part of it, was just the machismo, braggadocious thing that he used to do. But, I mean, I don't know, it's just that the picture was...
Very few. I think the fact that you said that you found him sexy, even though he was sort of androgynous, very few people could pull that off. And so, I mean, I've heard say Prince was sexy. I mean, many women feel that, and they seem not overlook how he dressed or how he presented himself, but included that within the sexiness, you know, the definite.
Well, yeah, I think he projected so much confidence, whether it was real or not, and just he seemed to believe it. I mean, although that's not even true, because I've had overconfident men, I guess, on me, and that doesn't always do it. So I don't know. He had that thing, and you know,
he was. I mean, sometimes his opinions were very, almost comically pompous, in that he didn't think anybody was as great as he was. And I think maybe as a musician, a rock star, you have to have some of that. You have to be cocky. I think that's part of the definition.
Well, I don't know if you have to be cocky. You have to be able to summon up that thing that believes that you have something that people. So if that's cocky, yeah,
I just mean very, very swagalicious. You know, you got to be very, very sure of yourself. Even if you're not, you got to present that to people. Look at Mick Jagger. Look at people who've lasted. You know, they're not wallflowers. You know,
that's true. I'm sure there's an exception, but I can't think of one right now. I mean, I think it can be a quiet thing. It doesn't have to be an in-your-face thing. But I think it's true that if you feel that what you're doing is worth putting out there on that level, yes, you have to have at least a certain level of self-belief, whether you want to call that cockiness or what you want to call it.
For instance, the opposite of that would be a James Taylor. Now, James Taylor is a very quiet performer. Where I wouldn't call him a rock star. I'd call him a musician and an artist. And he lasted a long time, but he's not the kind of guy that's going to get on stage and prance for you. He's going to sit down with his guitar and be very, very calm and peaceful and make you meditate to his vibe.
Right.
And there's artistry in that also, but it's not the same thing as a rock star. A rock star has to be sort of a showman.
Oh, absolutely. I get what you're saying, yes. So let's get back to you, specifically your novels. Can you tell me a little bit about where you got the ideas for them?
Sure. The one thing that several of them had in common was the word moan, M-O-A-N, moan.
Okay.
And someone asked me recently why I had that particular word in all of them. And initially, the first book I wrote was in 2002. And shortly before that, Terry McMillan owned the word Exile. I didn't want to put that into the title. I didn't want to make people think I was copying her. But I think, in retrospect, a moan is sort of the sound of freedom. When you can let go of everything, of letting go of taboos, of letting go of fear, of letting go of expectations, and allowing yourself to just breathe and be free. So Some other books had that word in the title. There was Long Blue Moon. There was Manhood, the Longest Moon. There was The Moaning After. That was my trilogy right there.
Okay.
My inspiration or my subject matter had to do with friendship and what started people out being friends, what made this friendship stronger, and what ultimately collapsed them. And sometimes they collapse during, how you outgrow people and sort of you see how they are and how you are. You don't have very much in common.
Right.
Or sometimes they collapse because of death or sickness or weakness or so many different reasons. I explored all of that. And that subject matter to me is still very important. I think our friendships are sometimes more lasting than family relationships. And I think, and we become the people we are because of our friends and the people we surround ourselves with. And then what I did was I decided to stage friendship through the years. You know how you start out one way, and first of all, I should ask you, do you have any friends that you've had since, let's say, junior high school to this day?
I have a few. I mean, most of the people that I knew way back when, I haven't been in touch with. But see, my situation was that, we didn't have to stay friends or anything like that, but, I grew up in a predominantly white town, and we weren't unacquainted with racism, shall we say. And my parents and this one family who lived across the street, their parents knew each other from college, and they were all West Indian background. And so, I guess we did like each other, obviously. That was good, too. But, we kind of stuck together partially as a front against these people who weren't initially accepting us. Now, over time, I had, I have a lot of white friends, and so it's not like, it was just like one thing, but, we've kept in touch, and that whole formative bond of the two families, knowing the parents know each other and growing up together. And then, but I have, one of my really good friends from junior high was someone who I met in junior high. And, we lost touch a little bit over a while, but, we reconnected, and we're still very good friends, and I feel very much that, she's someone that I could trust with a lot of things, so.
That's truly a blessing that you can have someone from that time and reconnect in life and having experienced life, and then you still find each other and you still find things to be friendly and have in common with,
Yeah.
That's a gift. And then what I tried to do with my characters were like to have people who started out as friends in the first year in high school and maybe not have a whole lot in common, but they all had singing voices. So they formed a group. But you know how people who are in groups don't necessarily stay together. They sound great. They're very harmonious. But at the same time, there's no harmony within them as people. And you have people breaking away from that. And some people become successful and some people become jealous of success of others. And it's like you try to take a track of what happens to people who start out together and they veer away from each other. And if they intersect in life, what happens to them and how do they relate and how different do they become, and some will be jealous and some will be resentful and some will be like glad to see another one successful, and some will enter your life and be more comforting when you need them to be a comfort, and some will be just that whole menage of how relationships and emotions can do over the years to people and how we sort of fall in and out of friendships and fall in and out of relationships.
Yeah.
It's always fascinated me because long ago someone told me that my friends in junior high school would not be my friends in college. And they were so right.
Yeah.
So right. I didn't believe it at the time. It's like these people, I love these people. You don't understand. I'm so tight with these people. But they were absolutely right. People change. You change. And I thought that phenomenon is very human and very universal.
Yeah, I will say that over time I find that there are aspects of, the way that I look at people and the way that I look at myself has changed in some ways. So, the way that people function as friends may be different. But I have to say, I wasn't the most socially adept, shall we say, when I was a kid, like as far as being introverted and not really knowing how to talk to people and just being really either a combination of shy and just various other things. And over time, I guess, looking at people and having a certain empathy for the areas that everybody has where they're a little bit awkward, where they're a little bit unsure, I find, obviously there's some people that I don't relate to or wouldn't want to take the time to relate to necessarily, but I do find that they're kind of, without trying to be like Pollyanna-ish about things, just, because I tend to analyze and see all these different facets of people, there's usually something about people that I can either understand or, hopefully embrace. But if I can't embrace it, I can understand it. And so, I don't know, there aren't a lot of people that I really distance myself from completely in the sense of, like, if there's some sort of reason for me to be in common with these people, there are people I will reveal myself to more or less, trust more or less. But, as far as resenting and, when I see those things coming up in myself, I try to address them, look at them, improve on them. And so as a result, when other people bring certain things that maybe don't seem pretty, I see them as maybe things that were or are within me, and I'm a little bit less, I don't know, I'm just not as hard on them as I might be, as some people might be. Like, I think I'd maybe hold on to people longer than most people would just from that. I may keep them at a distance, but, as far as completely cutting people off and washing my hands and feet and whatever else, I'm slow. Yeah, I'm very slow with that. But
the reason why I wrote that book is because of this one sentence that kind of inspired me. We are the same people we were as children, only with tougher skin. Do you believe that?
I think there is some truth to it. Like, I think the inner child living within you thing is truth. I don't think that, therefore, we are 100% the same person in that, that may be part of who you are, a piece of the puzzle. But I'm speaking, I guess I should speak for myself. I see that girl, and I know she's still alive to some extent, but I don't always listen to her, and I think that's good. I don't think I have to be exactly like, let her run the show. It's like, oh, yes, I feel you, okay, it's all right, it's all right, I'm going to do this.
Girl, what hurt her feelings back then? Will things hurt her feelings now, although she has tougher skin?
Well, no, she definitely has tougher skin. I think it's tough enough that some things don't hurt her like that used to really hurt her. I really think that's the case. I think, let's see, if we're going to be psychological about me, you said, being an odd kid, and, I certainly was an odd kid, whatever that means. Odd is a judgmental term. But, as far as being someone who didn't feel comfortable in her own skin, and part of it is a conscious thing and working on thing and talking to myself in a way that I would want others to speak to me and dealing with myself in a different way. I don't think there were times that I wish she would die because she was too problematic. But at this point, it's sort of like, every once in a while she needs a little hug, but, she can't run things anymore, because it just, things didn't work as well when she had too much control. And, there other voices and more mature, wiser voices get more say, I guess. But that could be partly the thicker skin. I don't know.
Okay, now somebody wrote a book about you, right? And it started out from your childhood. Would there be a completely different character by the time they wrote you as an adult? Or would you display many of the same traits?
I see your point. Okay. No, it wouldn't be a completely different character. No, there wasn't like a body snatchers thing that happened. No. Okay.
I had a character, for instance, who always said, yo. He said, yo. Maria, yo, when you come and see us, yo. He did this as a teenager, right?
Yeah.
He continued to say yo as a young adult, as a grown-ass man, and as a man in his 30s. Yo. And people actually spoke on the fact that, can you believe he still says yo? Like he did when he was in junior high school? But that was my way of saying some people do not change. They might mature. They might, have their own little idiosyncrasies that make them who they are, but they are essentially the same person. I think a lot of the critics who were not necessarily kind to that particular character thought that he showed no signs of growth. And I thought that's the point I'm trying to make here,
there's a certain expectation, and I don't know if it's an American thing or, and I was going to skip the question about foreign films, but one thing that I have tended to like about foreign films is that while I have nothing against happily ever after, there's a certain desire for certain things to be wrapped up neatly or historically in American films. And sometimes it just, and the idea is that a film should be an escape as opposed to maybe just an exploration, a journey, and maybe it doesn't end perfectly. And, they say, well, life is like that. We don't need that in a movie.
That's a very good observation.
And you may say, well, why did I bother to go on the journey with this character if they weren't going to grow? But the thing is, even in the course of just interacting with that person's world, the fact that you become aware that this person hasn't grown, that can stimulate thought in your own mind or remind you of people who are like that.
You want to be like that or whatever. And there's a reason for it.
Yeah. It's just like visiting. To me, reading a book, a good book, is a voyeur in a sense, but you're being carried along in this world that may be like yours or maybe different than yours, but in some way it has to resonate with you on some level, even whether it's to look at your situation and think about it differently because these people did things so differently. But if it doesn't resonate on some level, then I feel like I didn't, what was the point? But if there's resonance, even if everything isn't pretty in the way that I wanted it to be, then to me it was, that moves me and that is worth my time. So I find that a frustrating criticism too, because everybody doesn't grow and become all that they should be at the end of a book, at the end of their lives, at the end of anything. It's just kind of a silly expectation in my opinion.
And the fact that a character acknowledges that or notices that and speaks on that should tell the critic, okay, the author realizes that this person is limited, that he's drawn this person to be that way.
Yeah.
Because, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's already been recognized within the content of the book that it's like that. But there are people in life who do not change. And they're sort of like, they're refreshing in a way because there's no surprises with them.
Yeah.
This is what you're getting. That's how they're going to respond to something because that's who they are. Now, that's not always the case in life, and that's not always the way you want to be, but there are people like that in life.
Right. Certainly. And then you either accept them and roll with it, or you say, okay, well, I can't handle this person, and then you distance yourself. And being able to accept that sometimes people aren't going to turn out exactly the way that you want them to be, and they aren't going to figure out things exactly the way you want them to figure it out is actually, I think, kind of healthy because it's real.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
the thing I like about foreign films is that, I'll keep this very short, because many times they're translated from whatever language their native language is, it seems much more poetic and telling as far as how they express a thought or how they tell you what's going on or give you someone this dialogue as far as translating it into English. They make it very essential and very pointed and very almost flowery and almost like looking into the psychology of a person. You can watch an American film and never get that. You watch a foreign film, you get that almost with every sentence, and it's like, wow. The very few times that I've seen an American film that told me something about a character that through their dialogue was, what comes to mind is the film A Touch of Evil by Orson Welles. Are you familiar with that at all?
It's on my list of, I should see this because I keep hearing about it. But no, I've never seen that film.
You should see it. You should see it for many reasons. And it's not a pretty movie by any stretch. Orson Welles is a very corrupt cop who goes around and he's very dirty and no one likes him in the film. And he's killed in the end. And his girlfriend, side piece, whatever, that he mistreated through life is played by Marlene Dietrich. And at the very end of the film, she says something like, he was some kind of a man. What does it matter what people say about you? And I'm thinking, wow, she had nothing negative to say about him, but he was some kind of a man. What does it matter what people say about you? And I'm thinking, is that life in itself? Where you could be that naked in your expression and that, short, at the same time you're saying something very large and you're saying it in very few words. I could say he was a son of a bitch, and I could talk nasty about him. What if it,
Yeah, that's true at this point. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll definitely put that on my list. I mean, I'll say I like high and low, so to speak, culture. So, I mean, I can like things that are very popular, or I can dislike them and find them, vapid and annoying. But, I don't have a particular sort of, if it's not high art, then I can't enjoy it thing. If it strikes me as entertaining. But I will say that, I don't know, stupid is someone's idea, I guess, but things that strike me as carelessly assembled or, just lazy, I don't get into. But anyway, that's something that I'm sure I would enjoy. Okay. Related to the fact that you've gotten so many things published, I know that you wrote something for people who are talking about, well, how do you do that? Can you give a quick summary other than just keep writing it and keep sending it out and hope for the best? Or, I mean...
Well, the summary,
Well, if you can't summarize it, then you can tell them what it is.
You have to either get a reference book or something that's going to give you places to write to, people to see, people to connect with. And in my case, it was a writer's market, which they make, every year the conversion out. Because people move and the rest has changed or whatever. They go out of business and new places come into business. So if you find out what your market is, what you do, how you do it, you'll find people out there looking for the type of work that you create. The writer's market will do that. But you definitely have to be someone who's very fearless and wanting not necessarily a critique, because many places do not give you a critique.
Right.
They will just reject you coldly, and then you'll never know why.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to tell yourself it's subjective, that no one's going to like everything that you do, and not everyone's going to feel like you're the next genius or whatever, and that's cool. You just keep it moving. You can't not let that fade you. You have to let it inspire you to keep continuing.
Yeah.
And if you're not the kind of person who can take rejection well, then you're in the wrong arena, because that's not conducive to writing and not conducive to art in general. You're going to always find people who are naysayers, who don't get you, who don't understand what you're trying to do. And you could be doing it very well and could be doing it to the best of your ability, but they won't understand it, or they won't quite fall in love with what you fall in love with. And that's fine. The world is made of different people, and then you've got to be able to keep it moving and roll with the punches. But in my case, I was published so much because I submitted maybe 3 times as much as I was published. If I was published at 300 places easily, then I must have done that at least 3,000 pieces to various places that were rejected coldly, with rejection slips, with people not even asking, anything personal, or not putting any type of mark and letting me know that, or encouraging me to go further or keep it up or whatever. Which would have been a big help, but it wasn't forthcoming. But, the fact is, if you're doing it to get famous or to get rich, you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
You need to do it because you have a fire within you that tells you to create, and you want to share what you create with the world. That's the only reason to do it. And not just writing, but I mean music or anything that you do that calls upon your creativity. You have to do it because you will not feel like a full human being if you don't do it.
I don't, again, knee-jerk knock anything just because it's of a generation that I'm not part of. But I feel sometimes with the YouTube famous thing, I mean, the example of this is this guy who got his girlfriend to shoot him because he wanted a video to go viral. And he died. But, he thought that this phone book or something would stop it. And, but I mean, I think the whole... I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, but there seems to be more of a focus on getting famous than ever before, and without having anything in particular that you can do. Other than
now.
Yeah, I'm with you there, but that may be old school. I don't know.
Please stay old school, because talented people mean something in the world, and the world needs more talented people. These days, we seem to go for the mediocre, and we praise it, and we congratulate it, and we award it, and it's like, whatever happened to talent? Doesn't that mean anything, So
I think the talent for self-promotion is a talent. And that's not an easy thing to do. And I will say that even being a one-hit wonder is an accomplishment, actually. So I'm not knocking the one-hit wonders because, a lot of people don't even get that far. But, yeah, but you're right. It should be for its own sake. I think that's the only way that it's going to create a sense of joy. And I wanted to get to your Snatch Joy thing because you always sign everything Snatch Joy. When did that start?
Probably about 20 years ago now. There's a line from a poem that I wrote that said, "From the jaws of human suffering, snatch joy." And I thought, maybe I need to remind more people that they need to snatch joy because that's not something that you should ever be without.
Right.
That's going to sustain you. That's going to be, even if your girlfriend leaves you or your husband leaves you or you've lost your job or your kid is disappointing you or whatever the case might be, joy is yours. It's something you have intrinsic within us all. You got to start it out as a little kid, and as we get older, we sort of lose it, We lose our access to it. We have to access it and take it. And if somebody tries to take it from you, snatch it back. It's yours. It belongs to you.
I love that. Okay. I did want to hear you read another poem. Do you have another one that you'd like to read?
Okay. You insist.
I do.
I think I will probably do something that inspired me from walking the streets of New York and the things that I see and the type of things that move me to make me want to write.
Okay.
This one's called For Young Urban Bushwomen. There's a touch of magic within their limbs. They are young, impromptu dance of naturalistic animation, all swinging hips and fluid wrists, all rolling eyes and wise tongues clicking. They giggle surreptitiously as I pass. I turn my head, the giggling ceases. How could they possibly know that I love each nameless one of them? And I will forgive them their silliness, because they are of an age when giggling at strangers comes as easily as breathing. Although we've never met, these are my sisters. They are rainbow cloak of loveliness. They range in a host of beautiful shades from deep espresso to cafe au lait, and they smile like 1,000 grades of Egyptian sun. Although we never met, these are my sisters. Perhaps they are even my daughters. They are loud and lively. They stun and stupefy. They are daringly defiant and dangerously direct. And if they chose to, they could read me simplified, never pausing their conversation, never losing their stride, and all the while snapping on sticks of juicy fruit gum. And so, temporarily, I walked beside their rhythm as I blew invisible kisses and said a silent prayer for them. There's a spark of magic inside their limbs. They are the young nubile daughters of the 90s and the 2000s. They are an impromptu dance, a wonder of naturalistic animation, all swinging hips and fluid wrists, all rolling eyes and tongues clicking. They boldly flit along city streets like a flock of brazen peacocks, or perhaps a hot gang of exotic butterflies. How could they ever know I write poems not for fortune or fame, but in silent praise of them?
Well, I guess I know now. Well, thank you for that one. And I was saying that I was surprised that you had never written a book of poetry, although you did once say that you saw a novel as an extended poem. So why are you just now writing your first book of poetry?
Had someone approached me to write a book of poetry, there would probably be several volumes out by now. As it was, I was approached on the strength of a short story by an editor who called me up one night and said, "I think you have a novel in you." At that point, I had never even attempted to write a novel. I had only published poetry. I'd written a few short stories, but it was sort of like, let me challenge myself to see if I can. This person has enough belief in me to think that I have a novel in me, so maybe I should, explore that.
Mm-hmm.
So for novels later, I've decided that novels take way too much time to write, and my last one took 5 years of my life to write.
Okay.
And I don't want to do that again.
Okay.
I would like to reach people quicker with shorter pieces. Because a novel, you really have to invest the time and the energy and the brain think into, like, do I understand this person? Do I want to spend the next week or 2 weeks with this person or this family, these people, these characters he's created? Or do I want to just a quick fix and just keep it moving?
Yeah.
So poetry is a quicker sort of literary jolt. It's like literary coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I can understand exactly what you mean. As someone who has written a few novels, it is a big investment of time.
It is an investment of time.
Yeah, it's a big investment. Well, I mean, I think that you obviously can jump in and out of so many different little worlds and not emotions, because you can cover a wide range of emotions in a novel, but the scenarios can be so wildly different if you're in a book of poems than they can obviously in a novel. It has to have some sort of continuity. But
poetry, you can definitely cover an array of subjects with poetry, where you can do that in a novel too, but it's sort of like there's a time and a place where you can sometimes, my problem with writing novels tended to be that I wanted to include too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I wanted to say something about almost every subject that I ever thought about. It's like, you know what? You don't need to do all of that, you know? Because that's really just, you're doing that to, like, you know, just put your voice out there. It's not necessarily conducive to this particular story. Or doesn't make great storytelling to have everything included within this.
Right. People can see when you're just trying to give your philosophy and you're not really attending to telling the story. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so just a couple more questions here that I've been asking everybody. And one of them is, what do you think of when you hear the word beauty?
What do I think of when I hear the word? I think of one of my, used to be no longer relevant, but beauty used to be one of my favorite words. Now I much rather hear things like lovely, because it has the word love in it, and exquisite because it's more of a delicate beauty.
Okay.
I think beauty is probably overused. And I think also, I wrote about this actually, if you were to meet someone beautiful, physically beautiful, it's a bit jarring. It could be stupefying. It'll take away your breath. It could make you nervous. It could make you not be yourself around it. It's a bit much. It's overwhelming. Where someone who's lovely is sort of like calm, and you feel like you're drawn into them. You're more magnetized to who they are as people than beauty. That's sort of like, it's sort of off-putting. It can be.
You know, that's a sad comment. I mean, but I understand exactly what you're saying. And the part of that to me is a societal thing of elevating certain physical characteristics or this thing into making someone into just a mask that they wear, because, I mean, there are people who are beautiful and then spend a lot of effort trying to enhance whatever it is that makes them fit into that mold that society thinks is beautiful. And that's something women have been encouraged to do for years, and men are getting into it too. You know, I mean, a lot of these, you know, people going to the gym aren't going there to be fit. They're going there to look a certain way. But it's kind of, it's unfortunate then that mask becomes what you're describing, which is something that either draws people in without any particular reason other than the mask, or it becomes something that people aren't able to see is just a mask. You know, I mean, there are studies, I'm sure, that have been done with the way that people respond to people who are physically attractive and how it can be different than the way that they respond to people who are not. And so, obviously, the way that you experience the world when you are physically attractive is going to be different, and that will inform maybe who you become. But on the other hand, it is still a mask, and hopefully, you know, but that's why it's
it doesn't last. That's the sad part.
It's a mask that slips, too, unless you get lots of, even if you get plastic surgery.
Because the exterior is not going to be there forever, you know?
Right. I mean, Jane Fonda has a very good plastic surgeon, but, you know, I mean, like, at some point, you're going to look like you have that work done, and it's going to look like, you know, even then it's going to slip, and you're going to need some other thing, which is that loveliness, I guess.
Sorry for people who are, like, born beautiful, who particularly get through life on their beauty. It's like, well, what happens when that all goes away? Are you not working on the interior? because I feel sorry for you if you're not.
You see women who like Lena Horne and Cicely Tyson. I mean, they're carrying it all the way to the grave. But for the average person, yeah, I mean, being so caught up in that, it's unfortunate. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is, I'm not disagreeing with it. I just thought, it's kind of a sad thing to say.
Sad. That's why I much rather have the word lovely attributed to my work, or exquisite attributed to my work. As opposed to like beautiful.
Having called my podcast "Finding Beauty," although I wasn't going to call it "Finding Loveliness," I guess I could say, but I think that "Finding Exquisiteness" doesn't. I don't know. Anyway, maybe I'll change the title now, Lynn. Thank you. Anyway.
That's funny. Well, I did not know your podcast was called that. So I don't think I'm going to change my opinion, but I'm still...
No, that's all good. It's all good. Anyway, okay, I have two more things to ask of you, or maybe three, but they're short, hopefully. So the next one is, do you feel that art can change the world?
Almost definitely, and I think it does. Were you able to watch any of Eminem's rant yesterday?
I did. I heard a little bit of it on CNN this morning. I was like not in the room, but I did hear it. Yeah, okay. That was quite something. Yeah,
I think he used his art to change or to like reflect, put a mirror to our president, and it was not pretty. I think it can change the world. I do think that was just something I thought about really quickly, but the short answer to your question is yes, most definitely.
Okay.
And I think it does. And that's my aim, in my own little way, to change perception.
Yeah. Okay. Two more things. One is, how can people find more about you? Like, you have an online presence, and how would they find you?
I think the best way, because I don't have a website at this point in time, the best way people could find my writing would be to Google the word Monerplicity. That's what I made up.
Can you spell it?
I'm going to. Trust me, it's not an easy one.
Okay.
That would be M, O as in Oliver, A, N, E, R, P, L, I, C, I, T, Y.
Like it sounds. Just making sure. Since it's a made-up word, we got to check those things.
Exactly.
Okay.
But at the fact that it is a made-up word, when you type it in, it instantly brings you to my page. You know what I'm saying? You can't say, is this the one? No.
Okay. So the last thing was, do you have another poem, like one more poem for the road that you'd like to read?
Okay, I won't read this one. This one I'll recite because it was the very first poem that I ever published in a national magazine when I was an adult. And that was Essence. It was called Arch Groupie in Exile.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep.
I saw you standing in Harlem at sunset. Your elaborate dreads were dancing on wind, and I dreamed you were a poem, a black and defiant poem, composed of macabre clicks and hypnotic chants. I dreamed you were this ancient dance of a poem, inherited your moves from Sheba, your regal silhouette hinting of African queens. Without your rightful jewels, without your proper artifacts, but with astounding simplicity, so beautiful, so black. I dreamed you were the first portrait in time and creation, the art, the masterpiece this world had forgotten. Your lasting picture poem was painted in a still life and seen upon the streets of Harlem.
Well, thank you, Lin Ross, for being on Finding Beauty. I'm Maria Thompson Corley.
The theme music for Finding Beauty is Symphony of Light, written and performed by Kiana Corley, with assistance on the cello from Allegra Banks. Rusty Banks was the producer. Right now, you're listening to Liszt's Petrarch Sonnet No. 104, performed by yours truly. You can hear the rest of it on my CD, Music from the Novel Letting Go, available on CreateSpace and Amazon. If you're interested, you can check me out at mariacorley.com or mariasworld.us. You can also find me on Twitter at Maria Corley or YouTube. My recordings are available through Albany or Amazon. My novel, Letting Go, is available on Smashwords, CreateSpace, Barnes & Noble, and Amazon. Or drop me a line on my site, and I'll send you a signed copy. I want to leave you with one more quote. Do your little bit of good where you are. It's the little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. Desmond Tutu. Have a beautiful day.